And hello, everybody. This is MJ Hernandez, also known as your host for This is A's Weekly, the only show for your baseball podcast network that talks about the Oakland Athletics. And we are here ready to discuss on different topics that a lot of people have been messaging me, because we are finally back to Oakland A's baseball and having this show back on after a long break. We are 4-6 coming into the spring training of today versus the Kansas City Royals. That is going to be the matchup at 12:05. So please be sure to check up on that and see what the A's are going to be about. The A's have been up and down this spring training, but they have been trying out a lot of new players that have a lot to prove. Fair injuries have happened as of late, but, the A's have been one of those teams that are just experimenting right now and don't really take spring training as a productive type of thing. They just try to see who they can put into their roster and try people out. But the A's are 4-6. Started off really slow with the big losing streak, and then started reshaping the standings for themselves with the 4-6 record. So that is going to be one of the main things that we are going to be on the watch for this spring training, as they are enjoying themselves in the new Las Vegas ballpark that they have for their spring training affiliate. So talking about Oakland, we're going to see as more games go by, a lot of people are going to be starting to leave the spring training roster for the Oakland A's, and we are going to see the roster slim down and really be taken more seriously later in the tournament of spring training. But right now, it seems like a lot of people are working on secondary stuff. A lot of people are working on the stuff that they need to work on instead of just showing off their strengths. We see the pitching being a little struggle for the Oakland Athletics recently, as it was last year. But look, the pitching was a really strong suit, the starting rotation at least last year for Oakland, and now we have this rotation that is going to be pretty good. A lot of people have a lot of good things to say of this rotation, it being a great rotation with great presence and good abilities. Everybody can pitch differently, so let's see what they can do. And we're going to talk about the roster later on and see what is going to be my prediction of what the final roster is going to look like, if there's any additions, of course. But let's talk first, before we talk about the roster, let's talk first about the injuries of people that are for sure no-goes for the opening day roster. Two important pieces, in my opinion, and I think these two were two breakout candidates for the year of 2020. Daniel Mengden, who was most notably going to be in the bullpen for a change, has gone to arthroscopic surgery, and he will be missing at least 2 months of the regular season, and he's going to be likely to be used as a reliever when he comes back, especially after that big surgery that we saw with him in the elbow surgery, which was a really big scare because he was a big candidate of doing Tommy John, but thank God it was arthroscopic surgery. And that will be a big shot to the relief part of this team. But there's a lot of other good options in this chance of making the roster, and it just opens up opportunities for somebody else. And Stephen Piscotty is another one of those guys that is going to be shut out for opening day, which is most projectably shut out. It's not 100% guaranteed that he is off the opening day roster, but I'm considering him off because I think the A's are going to be extra careful with Stephen Piscotty because they want to use him so far for the season. I think it is smarter to hold him on lock right now, and he's going to an intercostal strain. But he is not expected to miss as much time as Daniel Mengden, but it is still questionable of how much is he going to miss. The strain hasn't been graded yet, So we're going to see what is going to go on with Piscotty as days go by. He is on lock right now. He's not taking any swings or anything. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what the A's will do with Steven Piscotty. But this opens up another roster another roster spot. And it is a pretty competitive roster spot. So now let's go over position by position what this roster is supposed to look like. Let's go first with the obvious. I think this is the most obvious part of the roster, which is the starting rotation. Unless if there's an injury, this is literally the lockdown of what the starters are going to be. And I think I am pretty safe in predicting this rotation with Mike Fiers, Jesus Luzardo, Frankie Montas, AJ Puk, and Sean Manaea. Any of those guys, and I mean any of those guys, can be the number one starter in this rotation. And I can see any of these guys being a breakout candidate for 2020, but it will be really, really, really biased to me saying all five of them are lockdowns of being breakout candidates. But this has to be one of the better rotations that I've seen in recent years. And this is going back into the rotation. And I don't want to have really overhyped praise for this rotation, but just the potential that these guys have. You know, there's a lot of what ifs in this rotation, especially with Jesus Luzardo and AJ Puk being in limited inning restrictions last year. But when they came up, they really showed what they got. Montas with the 90 game suspension last year, and then he made that start against Los Angeles, and he really showed promise, and he's been showing promise in spring training so far and trying to show people that was not a fluke. Sean Manaea was having high praise last year when he got back to the big leagues after that big injury. And then he was blown out in the wild card game, so everyone has the little hesitate for sure praise for him. And then Mike Fiers with the sign stealing stuff, and then the little drama with the Astros being declared the snitch. And to see and hope that he is going to be 100% focused for the 2020 season. All five of them, I will give you guys that. These guys are all five of them. And I mean all five of them. Question marks on whether they will break out. But whether they do have potential to break out, I think they do. All five of them have potential in being a good pitcher for this starting rotation. And the one that I got to point out the most, the one I'm most excited about, and everyone's going to say Luzardo, and I think they're going to say, Puk. But I think I would want to see Frankie Montas, see how he shapes up. I really enjoy seeing this guy pitch. He really, really has grown into me. At first, really, when he was a reliever, once we got him in that trade with the Los Angeles Dodgers, in that Josh Reddick and Rich Hill trade, really, really, really was excited to see what he got, because I knew the type of potential he had. He was a top 100 prospect for many years in the Chicago White Sox uniform and in the Dodgers uniform. And then now as an Oakland Athletic, he is going to show what he's got. I really want to see what he's got, man. He took a lot of time off last year, so he should be a full go. And he's lost a lot of weight as well. I saw him in FanFest. He looks like he's in good shape, and if he takes care of that body, he did have a big history of injuries early on in his young career, but last year didn't see any injuries going down with him, and hopefully this season he will keep his body in shape, and hopefully he will not go through any injuries for 2020. But I'm really excited to see what Montas has got. I think he is going to be the underdog in the rotation. Everyone's expecting Manaea and Fiers to produce and the level that they are used to producing in. But I think Montas is the one that's being underlooked and not really being observed. People gave up on him too quickly after the suspension. But I can confidently say this is one of the better rotations. As I said earlier, going back to the Mulder and Zito, rotation, that little three, and now what's it called? Tim Hudson, that little three-headed monster rotation. I don't think it's going to be as good, but it has potential to get close to that. And remember, we've had great rotations before. And the difference between those rotations and this one, there's only one guy that's going to be a free agent next year, and that is Mike Fiers. So he's on a 1 year. He's 1 year left on his 2-year contract when we extended him last season. Before the start of last season, Montas is going to be with us for a while. Luzardo, Puck, but barely the first years last year, and Sean Manaea is going to be here after, I think, 2023 or 2024, either of those two. So it's going to be pretty exciting to see what this rotation can give you, being 4 out of the 5 guys that are going to be with you for the next 2 to 3 years, unless if you trade them, and see what they got potential wise, and there's other upcoming pitchers that can probably make a case to try to be in that rotation in the future. But right now, it's these 5 guys, and hopefully these 5 guys can do it. So this was one of the more easier parts of the roster to discuss. So that was the rotation. This is more the unpredictable side of the pitching staff, which is the relief side. There's only 4 guaranteed locks that I see in the relief part of the pitching staff. And what I see as locks is Hendricks, who is coming off an all-star year and being one of the more favorite guys in the roster and in the clubhouse and in the organization. The fans love him. Our Australian closer, Liam Hendricks, is a lock. Yusmeiro Petit, our workhorse, is a lock for this 2020 season. And as long as I'm seeing, Joakim Soria, the veteran, he is expected to be breaking out in 2020. And I can see that, and I had a love-hate connection with Soria in 2019, but he did get better as the year ended, and let's see what he can do in 2020. And Chris Bassett is another lock in 2020 in the bullpen. And this is where I'm excited to see Bassett. But you know what? Actually, let me cover the rest of the bullpen before. But I get on Chris Bassett because he is my pick of 2020 breakout candidate. And I'll explain right now. TJ McFarland, who was claimed off by the Diamondbacks during this offseason, is going to be one of our left-handed relievers. He's not our lone reliever. He was our lone reliever until we re-signed Jake Diekman, who is also returning in 2020 season. We can say that he was a lock. I guess we can add him into the locks. But the other 2 that are going to be tested in 2020, Trevino and Wendelken. Wendelken enjoyed a great season in 2018 and was a breakout candidate for 2019, but didn't really get the opportunities and didn't really pitch as great as he wanted to in 2019. So 2020 should be a fresh start for him. Lou Trevino, after an incredible 2018 season, struggled mightily in 2019. And I haven't really checked out the stats, but last time I checked him in spring training this season, he was getting rocked by a team in spring training. But let's see what he can do in 2020, because we really could use the Lou Trevino. 2018 was just incredible. And we all remember Lou Trevino in 2018. That was a Lou Trevino that went 2 to 3 innings against New York in the wild card game and absolutely shut them out. And that is the type of upside that he has. And just having that ability to be able to potentially be that great is worth keeping him on the roster. And I think he should be in the opening day roster, regardless if he struggles in spring training. But hopefully he gets things figured out, and hopefully he can enjoy a nice 2020 season. But back to Chris Bassett, who is my pick, a breakout candidate for the 2020 season in the relief.